I had so much fun interviewing my guest today. She is like as real as they come. And this interview is full of so many tangible takeaways. I cannot wait for you to hear it. My guest is Tiffany Carter, and she takes the mystery out of making big money doing something that you love. She uses a magnetic combination of her clear-cut communication style that she developed as a TV news broadcaster, her business savvy, and her intuitive ability to connect with women on a deeper level to uncover what's blocking them from achieving their dream life. She is also the host of the top-rated podcast, ProjectME with Tiffany Carter. And this day was super fun because we got to record an episode for her show and then turned around and recorded one for Powerhouse Women. So I feel like I made a new friend recording this episode today, and I think you're going to love it. So let's dive in. Welcome back to the show. We got to do like a warm up for this episode. I think this should be a new thing when I interview my friends who have podcasts. I just got to do an interview with my new friend, Tiffany Carter, for her podcast. You guys all need to go listen to it. But that was probably one of my favorite all-time podcast conversations. So I'm super excited to have you on my show now.
Well, that was nice to hear. I'm so happy you had fun. You know, my whole thing is if it's not fun, I'm not interested, because there's enough hard parts about being an entrepreneur that if I can't make at least 80% of it like fun for me and other people, then why are we doing it? Then I might as well have a soul-sucking like corporate job.
Amen. That we could just end the podcast. It could be the shortest episode ever. Just take that and run with it, people.
That could go viral, like the world's shortest podcast episode.
Shortest podcast.
Of course, I think that way.
Of course. But you are such a great interviewer. Part of it comes from your background, of course. And so for anyone who doesn't know you, I would love if you'd start off just kind of like sharing a little bit, whatever parts I actually love. I share my story different every single time. So like whatever version of the story of you getting to this moment right now, today, you want to share with us. I would just love to hear a little bit of your background and what inspired everything that you're doing today.
So my story, I always feel like I need to give a disclaimer first. My story can read like a Lifetime movie, and it can be a little triggering in how I say it because I'm like a tell it like it is person. So just giving you a heads up. I was severely abused from the ages 11 to 21 years old. I was pimped out. And we could go deeper, but it's not necessary. You can just kind of fill in the blanks there. I had zero self-worth. I was bullied in middle school for being the class slut because of the abuse happening at home. Like my name was written on the bathroom wall. So it's not like I had a refuge somewhere. But I knew in order to, so to speak, survive, I had a fake confidence. So I watched other people. A lot of times it was newscasters on TV who spoke well and seemed confident, and people listened to them. And so what I did is I mimicked that, right? So I made sure I spoke well and I stood up straight. I had good posture. And so people didn't know. It was my secret, so to speak. So I always wanted to be a newscaster since the age of 13. I think deeper, if we go deep into it, I wanted to be heard, right? I wanted to be heard. And, at least back then, not so much now, but, newscasters told the truth.
That's like, a whole
that's what you're supposed
for another day.
You're supposed to right. You're supposed to share facts, not opinions. Like that's like ethics, whatever. Yeah. So I liked that part. So I followed that. That never left me. I went to broadcast journalism school in Boston. I got hired at NBC before I even graduated college. Like I was like a dog on a bone with it. Like that's my personality. When I really, really want something, I don't let it go. And when my mind is fixated, I also don't let it go, which you can imagine like can spin out, like I'm the overthinker, overanalyzer, Enneagram 6, like to a T. So I started out my career as a newscaster and then, went to different stations because that's what happens, but you don't make much money. I mean, you make jack shit pretty much, unless you're one of the very small percentage few who makes it to like a national show, like a Dateline or, the Today Show or something like that. So I knew at a certain point, it was like, I didn't like how long that road was going to be for me to be able to not just have like the nicer things I wanted in life, but to be able to like do more. It felt very trapped. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I had a lot of friends who I saw in the world of pharmaceutical sales where they got, a nice salary and like they got a dry cleaning budget and a company car. And I was eating like ramen and broke AF. So I was like, okay, well, I'm down with that path. Then I was a dog on a bone with that path, right? So I had to interview at 50 different companies. They're very strict about who they hire. I didn't have a sales background. They liked that I was a journalist, but like, because I could present well, but I didn't know how to sell. And that was my first step into like that personal development world, even back then. So I worked for a very prestigious pharma company, multi-billion dollar company. They invested $100,000 into each of their hires. And I had like semi-privates with Tony Robbins, like crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And what was mind blowing to me is all the sales training, personal development training. But then when you put me out in the world to do the thing, terrified, like terrifying. It's one thing to learn. And I see a lot of this in a lot of you guys listening. It's very safe to be in learning mode, in studying mode. But then when you have to go and put it out in the world or go out and do it or go and post the video or share the podcast or, share your offerings or whatever, that's where most people quit or procrastinate or delay. And I get it. I just didn't have a choice because I would have lost my apartment. Right? I had to put deodorant on my face because I'm someone I don't know if you're a sweater. I'm one of those people like
I'm married to
cute
one.
when I work out. Okay. I'm a sweater. Okay. Like not my palms and my feet. It's weird. It's my face. Like I'm a facial sweater. So what is the whole thing in like business and work? Never let them see you sweat. It's like uncontrollable sweat, you guys, especially as like a female on top of it. That's not good.
And makeup, like the whole situation.
It's not cute. So I had to put deodorant on my face, which of course made me break out, whatever. So I would have to put as a regimen deodorant on my face. I was so terrified. I felt like I was being pushy, sleazy, salesy, gross, all those things. But that's where what I teach now today, like my emotional based sales and content techniques were born because I had to figure out a way to sell in order for me to not lose my job. I had to figure out a way to do it to where it was fun and where it felt good to me. Even though this amazing company taught me all these things, they can't teach customized what works for each individual, right? It's not possible. You just can't, right? So I had to figure out what works for me, my introverted self, my highly sensitive self.
Yeah.
So that's where that was born. I climbed that corporate ladder, hit the glass ceiling a million times in a male-dominated industry. And the big moment was one of my top clients, who's a very prestigious doctor. We were out to lunch. I was doing a marketing plan for him as for free, but more like, rapport, right? It's not like I didn't get a payoff, but it was like, I was getting a salary and like paid on how many prescriptions people wrote. So I was doing a lot of stuff like that for free. And he just looks at me and was like, why don't you start like charging for this and making your own money instead of making a company tens of millions of dollars a month? Because I had a geography that was generating that. And I was like, do you really think people would pay me for this?
Wow.
And he started laughing. And I was like, he goes, well, isn't it worth trying? I didn't have like mentors and stuff like that. And it wasn't a thing then to have a coach. It was like more of like, you could have access to like a Tony Robbins, but it's through like a big company or like you're a big executive or something like that. So there wasn't that kind of a thing going on. And I was uncomfortable enough at a certain point and miserable enough And I didn't hate what I did. I actually liked it. I was just miserable with the lack of growth, the lack of depth. I didn't feel fulfilled. It felt empty. I felt robotic. So I was uncomfortable enough to be willing to do something wildly terrifying to me and to go and to people and ask them to pay for me to do full-on marketing plans for them. I was terrified, but I already knew how to sell at this point, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people think, oh, well, if I just was not scared selling or confident selling, I actually was very confident at this point because many years had passed. I'm, an executive management now. I teach other people. But when you sell your own stuff,
it's different.
Wild.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
From network marketing, right?
Well, and
selling your own stuff is crazy.
It's totally different. Well, even before that, we didn't talk about this on our other show. So my first job was in sales, but I sold carpet. I sold flooring.
Okay. I can't even picture this. That's hysterical.
That's another thing for another
That's
day.
funny.
But like that, it's a totally different mindset. Yeah. And God, okay, there's so much I want to dive into, but I'm gonna let you keep going to that transition to where you are now.
Right. So that's where the transition happened. I didn't just quit my job. I don't advocate to do that. I have a million reasons for it. I have a podcast episode dedicated to it. It was like, it sounds sexual, but I call it my straddling method. I didn't realize it sounded sexual till I said it out loud a few times. And I was like, okay, Tiffany's,
but I also get it.
And I have and my name's like a stripper name anyway. So it's like Tiffany's straddling method. I was like, okay. Well, we're going with it anyway.
Could go viral. You just never know.
We're going to go with it anyway. But in about 6 months, I was able to give the 2-week notice and quit. And I was off to the races, but not without tons of bumps in the road. Terrified. In 18 months, you guys, after pitching at least 50 clients, these are corporate clients. So the sales cycle is longer with these big clients. Only 2 clients. And this is coming from someone who's award-winning salesperson because it was my own stuff. And I still have that company today. I've had it 13 years. I had the idea for ProjectME with Tiffany Carter 10 years ago. It took me 10 years, you guys, to make it happen because of all the things I know Lindsay talks to you guys about. Terrified. Who's going to listen to me? I'm not Oprah. Who do I think I am? There's person X, Y, and Z who's been doing it a long time. Who needs another person out there talking about it? They could go buy, a Tony Robbins program on sales or whatever. Why would they come to me? Excuse. The dream never left. The name never left. I had preliminary drawings of the logo, never left. The ideal client never left. 10 years. I'm telling you guys, 1 year turns to 3, turns to 5, turns to 7 very fast. Before I knew it, 10 years went by when I hit that 10-year mark and I knew it was 10 years and I still haven't done one damn thing. It was like that. There's something with numbers sometimes for people. It could be like a certain birthday you hit or whatever. For me, it was like, oh my God, I've had this 10 years. So what am I going to, it's like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Another 10 years? Like if it's not left in 10 years, there must be a reason why I'm supposed to do it. Didn't mean I wasn't terrified. I did it anyway. I was at the heaviest I'd ever been in my life because I had a whole health condition from working myself into the ground. So then that brought up other shit because I'm seeing Polly the influencer bouncing around on a beach in Bali wearing a white, string bikini in her ethnically ambiguous spray tan and long blonde extensions. And here's me who looks like, Puffalump. Who remembers Puffalumps, by the way? Do you remember those?
Okay, you lost me on that one. We were going back to some really good memories on the podcast we did on your show, like stuff that definitely.
You were talking about Care Bears. There was Puffalumps. Someone remembers Puffalump. Like you need to DM us and let us know for sure.
I'm gonna have to Google it. I bet
it was like remember. A satiny version of a Care Bear.
Yeah. It's coming back, but I'm gonna need a visual on that. So we should just pause this and Google it right now. But we'll do it after. But
yeah, so it took me that long, girl, and I was terrified. I mean, I was sitting right here 3.5 years ago where I had to submit that first podcast episode to my producer, because I hired a producer before I even started, because this is what I hire everything before I am ready, right? A coach, a producer, an assistant. And I sent it to him. So it wasn't like he uploaded it to like Apple or anything yet. I was, of course, in a state of sweat I was terrified.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, like 3 people listened to it, but like of course I thought like the world was going to hear it. I was terrified.
Do you think it was like another layer? So not only like now when you transition to your own business, you were selling your stuff, but now it's like you're putting yourself out there. There's nothing really more vulnerable than putting yourself, your story, your voice. Do you feel like that was what the fear was?
Oh God. Yeah, it was. I was raised, right? It all goes back to childhood. It was said to me a lot, who do you think you are? The world doesn't revolve around you. And I was called a spoiled brat a lot. These are like my mom's most favorite things to say to me. So that's what the critical parent was running in my head. Because being in an online, any kind of business, quite frankly, a product business where you're the face of the business, you're the founder of the company, it's a lot of you out there. I mean, visually, even you on videos, using you in press, typing your words, your photo, and all that kept playing in my head. Like, God, this is so self-absorbed. Like what do you think you're doing? Like you think you're that great that people are going to listen to you, Tiffany, instead of all these famous people. All these people are on the cover of magazines and are legends, and then they're going to listen to you. I mean, that was so loud, Lindsay. It was insane.
Yeah.
And I just did it anyway. It was that loud. And you know what the thing that worked for me, and it might work for you guys listening, I called it an experiment. I will experiment for 1 year. I will commit to giving myself 1 year and go all into doing this. And it's just an experiment, because what am I going to do? Go another 5 years and not do it? I've already wasted 10. I can give it 1 year and just experiment, but I have to go all in. I can't be toe dipping, as I say, like all in for a year. And if it doesn't work, and if it ends up becoming like some vanity project where it costs me a ton of money, right? Where
expensive
it's like
hobby.
Nothing, exactly, which I call a jobby, another word I made up. A jobby is an expensive, time-sucking hobby. If that is what it became, okay, at least I knew, okay, this wasn't meant to be, but I at least did it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that got me to do it, was knowing it was an experiment. Like, because 2 months in, I was really over it. 3 months in, then 4 months in. And I know some of you are there right now where you've been doing all the things Lindsay taught you. You've been posting every day. You're writing from your heart. You're doing the hashtags. You're doing this. You're learning your ideal client. And you're doing all the things and nothing is catching. I call it sitting in the dirty diaper. It sucks. It's uncomfortable.
So good. And that analogy could
it's
not
so
be
uncomfortable.
Yeah. And that's the part right before you get to the parts that feel a little better. But sitting in it is never the thing that we want to do. Okay, so this is so good. I knew I loved you immediately when we started talking about doing a podcast swap, because you said really the magic words and the things that this whole podcast community revolve around, which is number one, keeping it real, like really real, and getting out of your own way. And so when you go back to, I love that analogy, like giving yourself permission that like, okay, I'm going to experiment with this. And then the other piece was, and this is what it was for me. My first thing when I did that, when I got out of my own way, was I wrote a book, which was, I was not supposed to do, but I kept going back to like, you already know how it feels to not do it. Like you had the idea for 10 years. I was like, okay, I already know what that future looks like. Why don't I just see what's over here in this other future? Like, what if I just did it? So I love that tool, because that's the moment when you actually make the decision to do it against everything that you're telling yourself, even people in your life are telling you. That's actually when whatever you think of success or the people that you look up to, it's that moment when success starts.
Well, and here's the other thing. So many people have the story of, well, I don't have much money. I'm in a corporate
Yeah.
job, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? I had millions in the bank and your homegirl here still didn't start it. It
Wow.
wasn't about having the
Yeah.
money. I had the resources, right, to
Mhm.
take from my other company and invest in starting another one.
Yeah.
Not only the resources, I understand digital marketing. I'm a professionally trained communicator as a former
Yeah.
TV newscaster. So it's not like I even had some skills,
Mhm.
so to speak,
Mhm.
right? And it still didn't matter. Did not matter. It was not about that. It was for me. It was, who do I think I am? This is ridiculous that I'm doing this. I didn't also want to be, out of fear of being seen like a narcissist because of my mom being one. And my mom's the
Mm.
all about me person. And if it's not all about her, she gets very angry.
Mm.
So I was afraid that I was morphing morphing into her, that I was going to
Yeah.
become
Mhm.
like that person where it's like, God, how arrogant. Like,
Yeah.
you're just showing, oh, you're going to be on video, now podcast. Now you're in, now you're being interviewed for things. And it's like all about Tiffany, the Tiffany show, Tiffany all the time.
And you're like, actually, it is the Tiffany show now, mom.
Right. Right.
Okay, but let's be real here, because this is, a lot of people will tell the story of like, okay, here's what I overcame 10 years ago to get this started. Do you still have to battle that same voice today?
Oh my God, totally. And I love that you said that. It's one of my pet peeves. And I've done it too. I've done it too. I've done it with my podcast because I was too green in this space and too terrified to share in real time. Hey, I have 4 months in, 2 episodes a week as a professionally trained newscaster and a top producer. I have a total of 5,000 downloads. Like, I had to take the guy who does my nails, John. I had to take his phone and write a review from his phone because he like doesn't write in English. Like, I
Yeah.
did. He's like,
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
I didn't share that in real time because I was filled with so much shame and embarrassment around it. And I was barely able to like show up every day at that point because I was
Yeah.
so in the dirty diaper. I didn't share in real time either. Now I do.
Mhm.
Like, I have a full episode on like, I tell you what goes down in a launch, like when I'm still in the moment, which is very
Yes.
cathartic and very vulnerable. Like, I break down the numbers. I had
Mm.
a full meltdown on the beach with my best friend Tracy. It was, I mean, like a visible breakdown.
Yes.
So yeah, to answer your question, and you mentioned this when you were on my show, it's that up leveling. So I just declared recently, right, that, and I know where this company is going this year. It's going to be our first $1 million year.
Yeah.
I just had a blow it out your butt photo shoot in Miami, like epic level, stuff. I hate having my picture taken. So a lot of mindset work had to happen there.
Mm.
My visibility has greatly increased. So I had like a hangover, an emotional hangover when I came back. There was a high, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of
Yeah.
people have a high when you guys like, I'm sure there's a certain point in like in your mastermind where you see everyone's on a high, right? Where it's like, I know my ideal client and this is my program. And then when you have to go do the stuff
Yeah.
and pull the trigger,
Mhm.
then that's when all your crap comes up. And so for the last, I would say I got back, I don't know, April, let's just say April 7th. For the remainder of April, hot mess express. Like, I was in self-doubt, which in turn, because I was in self-doubt, my revenue for my company, both of my companies and my stock portfolios started going down.
Interesting.
And I'm
Yeah.
telling you, I would have thought that was bullshit back in the day. It's a true direct correlation.
Mm.
I was blocking the abundance. So now what's happening? My ego's looking for a self-fulfilling prophecy of, wait a second, you're saying you're going to 1 million this year, and now it's going backwards. I
Yeah.
started tripping. It took me about 5 days to catch myself,
Mhm.
truly. I was not in a good space. I couldn't look at the photos that were sent, that I spent tens of thousands of dollars on the shoot, you guys. I couldn't look at the photos. They were
Yeah.
sitting there. I couldn't do it. Then when I did look at them, there was another meltdown because I got them unedited.
Oh,
And that wasn't a
rude.
cute
That's
idea.
like a friend taking a selfie with you without using a filter.
Well, part of it was my fault. I always ask for them edited, and I purposely didn't this time. I thought I could handle it. I mean, I needed to work through it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like, when you're sitting in certain positions, like no one needs to see Tiffany's rolls. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't mean not to edit that out.
I mean, can you just read my mind here? Well, and I mean, so this is perfect. This actually ties in with what we did talk about on your show, which I'm going to make sure to link that depending on which one of these comes out first. We'll link it so everyone, at least link your podcast so everyone can go and listen, because I know I'm already obsessed with you. The whole idea of just being so honest about what this looks like. And the part for me that I wish someone would have prepared me a little more for is how, as you're growing, so like this is a perfect example. You have this amazing shoot that like we could have, the version of us a couple years ago maybe would have looked at and been like, wow, okay, that version of me is killing it. And to realize that's usually the point that I have to deal with my biggest triggers, because I'm just starting to like disrupt the matrix of my mind, thinking like, oh, we're cool, we're good here. We're going where? We're going to a new level that I'm going to have to get uncomfortable. Like, what has that been like for you along the way? That's a perfect example, but like, have you dealt with that? Like, as you've built each of these, soon to be multiple $1 million brands?
Yeah, I mean, my other company I've had for 13 years, it's a multi, 7-figure business. And listen, I'm a stubborn Virgo, and I used to be really cheap when it came to my business. Very cheap. Like, I didn't want to have to hire an extra person because it's more money than I wouldn't have for myself, right? And then it was like I didn't want to just break even on my business. The last thing I would have hired was a coach, because I had a belief if I couldn't do it myself and figure it out on my own, that meant I wasn't supposed to be an entrepreneur. Like, there was some weird connotation I had that entrepreneur meant alone. I don't know where I don't know where I picked it up, but it was strong.
Yeah.
So it took me 5 years before I truly like waved the right white flag, because you can build a business multiple ways. The way I built my other business was 12 to 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm not available for that anymore. It does work. It's just not sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I wanted to quit all the time. I remember, I think it was year 3, I owed more in taxes than I made. And I am openly I'm not the brightest bulb. I'm sharp, but I'm not bright, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not good at like mathematics in that way. I just know how to count money, kind of a thing.
There's accountants,
Yeah, I don't get it. And I was like, how? I mean, no one taught me entrepreneurship. Like, how did I owe more than I made? Like, I don't get it. And it was like $5,500 and I didn't have it. That was my biggest meltdown I can remember as like still a newish entrepreneur, because I was like, what am I doing this for? Like, I'm not even making money and I'm killing myself for it. And what is this all for? I had that so much more often than is necessary because I was trying to do it alone.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had this amazing conversation on your show about that whole, well, the notion of doing things alone, which then I think leads to like this overall just like loneliness that can often come along with entrepreneurship. I know you've mentioned you're best friends with one of my favorite women on the planet, Tracy O'Malley. Have you always had a circle of friends who like get it and are in this realm with you since you've been building business, or has that been something that's been a challenge?
My first business, not a damn soul, you guys. Everyone thought I was nuts. I was leaving a prestigious, right, corporate career with all these benefits and an expense account and a paid car to go do my own business. And like, boss babe wasn't a thing. Like, you were just nuts. Unless you were a guy, then it was like, that's really great of you. But like, as a female, you were nuts. So no, I didn't have that. There would either be like some weird jealousy vibes from people, or I had a lot of people who were very hurt because I didn't have time to go to the clubs as much, do things like that. They were very hurt. They felt very neglected by me. They didn't get it. So it was very lonely in that sense. But I also was blocking that from coming in.
Yeah. Tell me
I
more
was
about that.
blocking that. I really was. I was blocking it. I was blocking the abundance from coming in because I was raised very wealthy. A lot of people are like, oh, well, I have a poverty mindset because I was raised poor. You can also have one by being raised wealthy. I was the second wealthiest family in an already wealthy community. So, like, those of you might know Scottsdale, right? It would be like being the second wealthiest person in Scottsdale. Like a ridiculous house with 2 gourmet kitchens, that kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But as I said, like, it was the house of horrors inside, right?
Mm.
So money was attached to danger
Yeah.
for me, like extreme success, right? I already had the 6-figure success, which is still success. That was safe success for me. You start going and you start hitting the $1 million mark. That to me was danger, but I didn't know it. Right. So we could only figure out so much stuff on our own. We need people to see our blind spots. So I felt so vulnerable and so raw. I really didn't let anyone in. I didn't call anyone in. So, like, using Tracy as an example, and she and I joke about it all the time. If she came into my life, then I would no, she goes, I would have hated you. And I go, and I would have ran from you. Like, anyone who could see me, who could see me on a deeper level, like, those people you meet and you're like, oh, okay. They know they know what's up. I couldn't handle it because I was such a mess. I needed to, like, kind of push it down and stay in denial. So I didn't have like a true deep support system. I had a lot of people around me who would say whatever I wanted to hear because I was successful and they wanted my money because I kept writing them checks. I had a lot of that. I had people around me who would tell me, I've got your back. Like, when I would have a meltdown, I've got your back, whatever you need. And they did mean it. These people meant, some of them were people I was in relationships with, engaged to, right? They meant it. I believe they meant it, but they actually weren't capable. And I knew that. So therefore it didn't land for me.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. So it wasn't until I did heavy, crazy, deep work on myself. Like, I went to a whole recovery program to where I learned how to be truly intimate, but still maintain boundaries.
Yeah.
So that I could call in these people that are like real friendships, not surface, not half, but like the real deal, where we show everything. And that I wouldn't trade anything for that. You could have everything I have. I'm going to cry. You could have everything I have. I would never trade that. That's the greatest gift as an only child, as someone who only has one living relative, who had nobody growing up. I would never trade that. That's why I think it's so beautiful what you do, because you at least create a container that can make that possible. You can't make people connect, but you create the container for it.
Yeah.
It's amazing when that happens, but you have to do the work.
Exactly. And that is how you shared that is so beautiful, because that's the part I think that's keeping a lot of us feeling lonely, is not being willing to look at, well, why do sometimes I feel triggered by another woman's success, or why am I keeping people at a distance? That's the real stuff. You really want to know how to connect. It's that inner work of figuring out why you don't connect. And that's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
For life. What does that look like for you now? Now, the version of you who's done some of the work, you've created your first successful company, you're current company, the one that is like your heart and soul's purpose, is on its way to $1 million. And that might not even be the metric of success that you consider like you measure against. But what does this look like for you now in terms of, do you still feel lonely? Do you feel supported? What does it look like in this season?
I know I'm not alone.
Mm.
So that's major because I felt alone my entire life.
Yeah.
So I know for a fact I'm not alone, which is major. And I really believe it. It's not like a moment or I read some quote on Instagram, and I know it at core, which makes me feel safe, which is again, safety, security is like Enneagram 6.
All of our
Enneagram
6s are like,
right? Like,
yes.
right. Like safety. Right. So I know I'm safe. I know I'm supported. I know I'm secure. So that goes a long way. I will say with, the pandemic, not being able, especially living in LA, not being able to connect regularly. And I'm an introvert. Like I don't need a ton of interaction to feel connected, but just not having that regular connection at a certain point did start taking a toll. And I'm on medication for depression. Like I manage it through diet, exercise, all of my other practices, but I do need medication. And it was really affecting me greatly. And it showed me how much, even as an introvert, like how much those daily interactions, even stupid, like my like place I go for my favorite coffee at this place called like East Coast Bagel, like as I know everyone and we joke around.
Yeah.
Even that, right? I missed even that kind of stuff would fill me up. Me, I call them my gym friends, like your gym friends. You know what I
Like
mean?
you don't talk outside of the gym,
It's
but you
so
work
weird.
out and during the same hour. Oh yeah.
Totally. And you see them more than your friends, but they're still gym friends. Gym friends, even like getting, your hair done or lashes, or like me constantly injecting my face with Botox, like even stuff like that. Like even those regular people I see in interactions were gone. It was really hard, and all the insane amount of Zoom calls. And it was like, well, and then I started feeling almost like guilt and shame. I started shaming myself, like, Tiffany, you talk to people. I really do. I talk to people all day long. It's all I do is talk. I talk to people all day long, yet I felt so disconnected, and I kept going, God, what's my problem? What's wrong with me? But I wanted a hug.
I am so hug deprived.
Yeah.
And so I'm interested. This has actually been a conversation happening a little bit in our community because I live in Phoenix, Arizona. Things are starting to move toward opening up more. We have women in our community who live in either cities in the US or countries, like we have Canadians and people like that, where now they're having to like watch other places kind of return to, whatever normal is, who knows, but start to have the ability to open up. And I don't think we're talking enough about like this phase where there's still people who really like, they need our support. We need to know how to ask for that, because now we're in this weird in between. We're straddling. See how we brought that back, right? Where everyone's not really living in the same version of reality. So how are you supporting yourself like right now in this weird in between?
I mean, the reality is no one has it as bad as India. And I actually have a lot of clients from India. So like,
oh, really?
Yeah, I do. A lot of people are shocked by that because the dollar, the conversion rate's off, but I do have a lot of clients from India. So no one has it worse than India.
Right.
So I remind myself of that, but that doesn't mean I don't have the right to feel how I feel. I was definitely had to mute even friends of mine on Instagram, especially the people in Florida, where it was like life was normal, like really normal, right? And they were going to their yoga classes, and I had to mute that. It did not feel good. What helped me though was talking to other people. I have a large Canadian community as well. Shout out to my Canadians, my second favorite country.
Hey.
Hey. And I made sure to ask for what I needed. whether it was from my own clients or just people I know, that I've become friends with, like on Instagram, openly talking about it and versus acting like I'm okay, which like that's not what I do anymore.
Mm,
Openly, and even if I'm the one initiating the conversation, I have zero fucks. Like I'll initiate the hard conversations, and that made me feel less alone, made them feel less alone,
yeah.
right? In talking about that. So that's really helped. I mean, I've had to really shed the gym thing was big for me. I had to really shed that,
Yeah.
because that was one of my main social interactions of the day, along with the way I managed, my depression. And I had to really shed that one. That was tough. But I mean, I think there's some denial all of us are in a little bit. Like that's and that's why I think denial is not a bad thing all the time. There's a little
Hmm.
bit of denial where it's like, well, for sure by the end of this year.
Right. Oh, isn't that true? Man, I just have such compassion, and it's I'm grateful to have a community that keeps me connected to the fact that we aren't all living the same reality right now. And then just, it goes so much deeper than that. It just gives you a different perspective of how important it is to be a part of community in whatever way supports you. But when you're the one who can offer the support, offer it. And when you're the one who needs it, to ask for it and be okay with asking for it. So I just love that. I love that you speak so openly just about how this season has been for you too. Um, and, you know, getting to know a little bit more about you and your story, I said to you, I said, you were legitimately, and I'm not just saying this to be nice, like one of the best interviewers I've ever gotten to do a podcast with. So I want to know, what do you wish more people asked you about?
I wish people asked me more about like mistakes that I've
Yeah.
made, like the less sexy things, right? The mistakes I've made, what do my hard days look like? What happens when I have not just one hard day, but like I have 2 weeks in a row? What does that look like? How do I get through that? Um, that's the stuff I wish we all talked about more. I think a lot of people don't ask me because they don't want to answer that question publicly themselves.
Themselves.
They're not
Huh.
ready. They're not there
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah. What does that look like for you when you have
So,
when a bad day turns into a bad 2 weeks or a season? What does that look like? Still having to show up for your business.
yeah, it's I had a key person on my team ghost me during a big launch, ghost us. That was wow. That was really tough. I'm also not used to this ghosting thing because with my other company, the type of employees and clients and things like that, it doesn't happen in the corporate world. I'm not saying there's isn't other stuff that happens in that corporate dynamic. It's just very different. So that triggered a lot of abandonment. I was shocked.
Yeah.
Um, I was losing tons of money by the minute, quite frankly. And then my nervous system obviously was shot. This is not the first time. It was the second time this has happened with a different person in the same role. So then it went back to, because I overblame myself. Some people point the finger at others. I'm the opposite. I
Mm.
overblame. Like I take on the full responsibility. I'm too much, right? So I'm like, what am I doing? What did I do wrong? I was almost like PTSD traumatized, where I was like, I'm losing this whole thing down. I don't need to be doing ProjectME for money. Like, I don't need this. Like, it's safer over here. I can just
Yeah.
focus on my other company. I mean, all those things were said. Uh, Full tears, calls to my best friend, calls to 911s to my coaches. Like, I'm quitting. Fuck it. I don't need
Mm.
this. This is
Mm-hmm.
bullshit. Like, I can help people in a different way. I can't believe this is happening again.
Mm.
And then the hangover from my cortisol being so high, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where I was just exhausted. Yet I have meetings, I have podcasts, I have deliverables, I have contracts. I have two companies. I mean, I'd be majorly sued in my other company for not showing up. These are multi-billion-dollar companies, right?
Yeah. Right.
So I don't have, do I have a choice not to show up? Sure. We all have a choice, but I don't like the consequences,
Mm.
right? So how do I get myself to show up? I'm telling you guys, it's 1 minute at a time. And then
Mhm.
I have to talk to myself. It's like talking to my inner child, like little Tiffy. What is it? Okay, like kind of like you take a kid to get a shot. It's like, okay, well, we can go get an ice cream after, so it was like,
Yeah.
right. It was like I took everything off my plate that I could, which by the way, that sounds nice to say. When you're at a certain point in entrepreneurship, taking everything off your plate, you're still left with a lot of shit. Right. So
Yep.
I mean, that's nice. Okay. So I did that. There's still a lot left. So I just kept saying to myself, okay, what are you going to do, later? Like as soon as you're done, I give myself permission to just go lay down and zone out.
Yep.
Even if it's every single day, I give myself permission, right? Permission to do that. What did happen though, is I inadvertently, when talking to clients and engaging with, really wonderful people, it did lift my spirits, even though it was through a screen. It
Yeah.
was like healthy distraction.
Yeah.
And then it
Yep.
also reminded me, right? In serving others, being of service feels good. So it reminded me why I can't quit, why I can't just stop doing this. Okay, I didn't really mean that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, let me tell you, it didn't lift for, until recently. It
Yeah.
was a several week situation.
Yeah. And that's the truth of it, is that especially when you're taking on yourself and your own growth, and then throw in other human beings that we work with and interact with, it really is a recipe to like be taking ourselves on and sometimes getting knocked down. And I think every entrepreneur would be lying if they said they haven't at one time fantasized about quitting. Just like had the little mental vacation of like, what would that look like? But then I think it's important to know like what brings you back, right? What brings you back? What has you show up? That made me feel a whole lot better. So thank you for sharing that. But I legit could talk to you for hours. I think we'll have to just like make this part one of, a recurring podcast series we come back and revisit every once in a while. But I'm going to finish with a really my favorite question to ask at the end of our episodes. But before we do that, just give us a glimpse. What are you working on right now? Like what is that thing about your purpose and what you're working on that just is lighting you up the most?
There's a lot of things, but what lights me up is the space that I hold for giving direct and clear actionable steps. I don't hold back. People come to me because they are done with the surface stuff of,
Yeah.
kind of people giving them one layer, but not really getting the nitty gritty on, no, this, you need to format a post like this. You need to send this many emails. This is the sequence. This is why. Also like that's part of my brain is I'm a strategist,
Yeah.
but actually giving concrete, true strategy where it's very clear on what to do. Like I love seeing the relief people get. Like, oh my God, thank God someone just told me, what the fuck to do, because that
Yeah.
used to be me. I'm willing to do whatever. Just someone give me clear direction and tell me, not like overarching generalities, like
Yeah.
very clear direction. So I have like several different ways people can do that. Obviously, a high level is to work with me privately. I have, my programs that come up once or twice a year, but I have my ProjectME passive income posse, which is a group coaching membership.
Oh,
So it's a
cool.
group coaching
Yeah.
model, right? But in the form of $100 a month membership.
So
So
smart.
we're there getting, me every single week, teaching them live. I bring in, special guest experts on areas where someone has like extreme expertise in an area, but the qualifications are like you walk away from every training where it's very clear on what you need to do to move the needle and there's no fluff. So that's what is really exciting me, to be able to have so many people just also have a space to go ask the questions that people are kind of embarrassed to ask. Like, do you put hashtags in Instagram stories? Like, I feel stupid about asking that because I've Googled it a million different times and there's no clear answer. I felt so stupid when I was growing this thing, and I would DM people. Like, I had no shame. I would DM people and be like, I did Google it first because I don't want to waste someone's time, right? I Googled it first. I can't find an answer. And then no one would reply. No one, over and over again, no one replied to the DMs, right? And it was like, that's not my jam. Like, homegirl replies, as I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get it. Like, just tell me, how do you make auto-generated captions on an IGTV? Like, someone tell me, right? Yeah. So that really excites me. It sounds kind of nerdy, but I really geek out on the strategy side of content and creating high converting content.
Yeah.
That's like my zone of geekness.
I'm like, great. You're officially invited to come back into our community to jam on that, because I think that would be super fun. And we'll link all your podcasts. We'll link everything that you sent us below in the show notes so you guys can all find Tiffany. Go and follow her. But like, the biggest thing you can do is when you listen to an episode like this, I love how on your show, you're like, I know you're multitasking. I'm like, wow, I feel like both seen and attacked at the same time, because I am that multitasker, right? Listening while doing other things. But, take a moment, like DM her, let her know what you took away from this and what you are going to do differently because of it. Did you feel seen? Did you feel just validated by what we shared? And take the time, because we do hear and we see those messages, and it means the world knowing that it resonates with people. So definitely take the time to do that. And then here's my last question. And this is one that I ask mostly because it's always something I'm working on, because I'm always looking for where my next room for improvement is. That drives me. I love it. But I'm not always great about pausing to be like, okay, where was I kind of a badass today? Or we just call it like your powerhouse moment. It can literally be anything. My favorites are the ones that are like so small. Like, no one else would necessarily think
like
that,
I pooped today, because that was a moment for me.
Well, there you go, folks. That's actually the first person we've had list that as their powerhouse moment. But yeah, just something that for you, you're like, yeah, I'm actually really proud of myself for how I handled that, what I learned from it, whatever.
Aside from pooping today, because I didn't poop for 2 days, so I was really pleased about that.
So we're going to give you a second. You're going to give you a number 2.
Yeah.
Aside did there.
Aside from that moment, I would say it was that I could have canceled on my trainer, because I did not want to go work out this morning. I wasn't feeling it, and I had every excuse prepared, and I showed up regardless. And anytime I show up regardless, like, I'm winning.
Mic drop. That was so good. And just thanks for being here. Thanks for being you. This was super fun.
Thank you.